Round 2 of a winter storm soaking San Diego right now. Emergency responders on standby for the worst case scenario. We'll have more on the storm and what we can expect for the rest of the week.
Look in the mirror.
Measures at the border, the future of face scanning, and the balance between technology and privacy. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma. A second storm is sweeping through Southern California. Parts of San Diego are under a flood advisory now. Rushing waters hit canals and streets along the border today. This is the scene in Tijuana where drivers were dealing with slick streets and highways. In South San Diego County, first responders, politicians, and Tijuana River Valley residents gathered today to discuss potential flood emergency evacuations. The low-lying valley is one of the most flood-prone regions in the county. It's home to binational waterways, ranches, and 1,000 horses. Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina is urging valley residents to closely monitor flood dangers and to have an evacuation plan for their families and animals.
The fact is it could be raining a lot harder upstream, and the flooding is not just the amount of water that's coming downstream, it's all that debris. So it's the flood debris, and it's what's coming down those hillsides, and especially after all our drought, you get a lot of dirt washing off and debris and sediment washing off those hillsides.
The San Diego Fire and Rescue Department has pre-deployed crews to the region in the event they're needed for swift water rescues. There have been road closures around the county because of the rising waters. We are tracking those closures online at kpbs.org. The flash flood watch is in place until Wednesday night, but today's soggy, cold weather didn't stop people from enjoying a day at the beach. A family visiting from Canada says the rain will not ruin their vacation.
This is still pretty warm weather for us, so where we come from, it can get average minus 25, minus 30 degrees Celsius. So this isn't cold, it's just wet.
No, but about every time we come out here this time of year, it usually will rain one of the days we're here. So we don't mind the rain because where we live, it doesn't rain.
San Diego County will continue to experience steady showers through Friday. Another wet mess for San Diego drivers today. Heavy rains hit Mission Valley this afternoon. This is on eastbound Interstate 8. Another look at flood roads. This is in La Mesa at the intersection of Interstate 8 and 70th. Rainy weather didn't just dampen roads today. It may have disappointed anyone trying to visit Southern California theme parks. Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park and Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia both closed for the day due to the wet weather. For another look at the storm system, Molly Cochran has more in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Well, the El Nino pattern right on cue across Southern California. We can just see heavy rainfall moving into the region. Also some heavy mountain snow across the northern Sierra Nevadas, but that's also going to reach into the southern half of California in the mountainous regions, mainly above 7,000 feet. So it's just going to be pretty much a nightmare out there if you're doing any traveling from LA into San Diego. Now we'll bring it closer to home. Just take a look at all of these bright shades, red, orange, and yellow now off of the immediate coastline, but that's all going to be moving on shore as we go into the rest of tonight. So if you do have any travel plans, San Diego may be headed home from work. Definitely expecting slower travel conditions for the remainder of tonight. Chula Vista picking up just about a quarter of an inch thus far. The San Clemente Island so far a little bit over a half inch of rain being recorded, but it's still coming down steady across much of the region, so we will watch those rainfall totals add up pretty quickly. For tonight, temperatures going to be in the mid-50s for San Diego, Ramona at 45, Oceanside at 47. All going to be seeing the cloud cover and also the showers. The mountainous regions also going to be looking at snow. That does include Mount Laguna with a low of 33. So we are expecting not only heavy rain and mountain snow, but coming with it some powerful winds. We do have a small craft advisory out along the immediate coastline. Some of those winds could be gusting to about 30 knots, and that's set to expire as we head into the later half of Thursday. Also have a flash flood watch out in effect for San Diego County. and the stormy pattern is set to continue as we go into tomorrow and also into the later half of the week. So here's a look at our extended forecast. Thursday along the immediate coastline, rain and thunderstorms continue. Daytime high of 60. We are slightly below average for this time of year as far as temperatures are concerned, and the wet weather is set to continue Friday and into the start of the weekend along the immediate coastline. Farther inland, here's a look at our extended forecast. Also going to be looking at the rain and thunderstorm threat for Thursday and into Friday. Not only are we going to have to concern about travel delays, but also the potential for some landslides. So something to definitely keep in mind. Mountainous regions, it's going to be cooling down here. 37 for a high on Thursday, 38 on Friday with some snow possible. And the desert regions going to be looking at the unsettled weather pattern as we head into Thursday, Friday. We'll have an increase in cloud cover for Saturday, but a break from the rain with temperatures in the upper 50s. Molly Cochran, KPBS News.
Our coverage on the late spring storm in San Diego continues on air at KPBS Radio and online at kpbs.org. Concern for California, and new conservation numbers are just out today. Californians cut water use a little more than 20% in November. It's the second month in a row that the conservation rate has dropped, but overall the state is still on target. State regulators say Californians cut water use 26% in the 6 months since the emergency drought rules began. That's slightly better than Governor Jerry Brown's mandatory 25% conservation goal.
You always want to try and get 25%. You want to get as much as you can, but I also don't want to diminish the heroic efforts that Californians have been making. 20% in November, twice as much saved as last year, means people are taking it seriously despite the hopes for a wet winter.
The Water Board is expected to extend and revise water conservation requirements. They are scheduled to vote on the issue next month. Meantime, the conservation numbers for San Diego slipped for November, with 2/3 of the county failing to reach water conservation goals. The city of San Diego saw a savings of 13.8% when compared to 2013, missing the state target of a 16% conservation rate. But water managers remain optimistic that the region is still on track, saying it's harder to find places to cut back in the winter since landscapes don't need as much water. President Obama unveiled his plan for reducing gun violence today in an emotional address. He wiped away tears as he spoke about the Sandy Hook shooting 3 years ago.
Every time I think about those kids, it gets me mad. And by the way, it happens on the streets of Chicago every day.
The president outlined the 23 executive orders from the White House, including closing loopholes on background checks and improving mental health care. San Diego Representative Scott Peters was at the announcement earlier today and says the president's actions are a good start.
He understands that this Congress won't allow gun legislation to come up for a vote, even background checks, which are, I think, supported by 90% of Americans, including 60 or 70% of gun owners.
Critics, including Republican representatives from San Diego, aren't pleased that Obama is going around Congress and using his presidential powers. Representative Duncan Hunter sent KPBS a statement which reads, in part, the president has an aversion to the Second Amendment, and the fact that he's preparing new regulations, which are likely not to make a difference where actually needed, underscores his personal resentment toward this fundamental constitutional right. Darrell Issa tweeted his disapproval. Obama said in his speech that he believes in the Second Amendment and isn't looking to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. We'll have more analysis on the president's executive actions on gun control tonight on the PBS NewsHour. That starts at 7 p.m. right here on KPBS. A potential ballot measure aimed at greater accountability for the San Diego Police Department was submitted to the city clerk's office today. The ballot measure would make the Citizens Review Board on police practices more independent. The panel reviews officer-involved shootings, complaints against police, and disciplinary actions. Proposed changes include removing the city attorney as the board's legal counsel and barring police representatives from being present when cases are reviewed. Authorities investigating the attack that killed 14 people last month in San Bernardino are seeking the public's help. Investigators are looking for information about an 18-minute gap in the timeline between the deadly attack at the Inland Regional Center and the shootout in which both attackers were killed. Investigators hope to find out if the assailants contacted anyone between 12:59 p.m. and 1:17 p.m. on December 2nd. Recent events like the San Bernardino shooting have focused attention on visa violations and border security. Before politicians began calling for greater vigilance, plans were already underway to step up screening at one crossing. Border agents in San Diego are now testing biometrics to screen who's crossing the border. Civil liberties advocates say they're also testing the limits of privacy. KPBS tech reporter David Wagner has the story.
At the Otay Mesa border crossing, people are lining up to enter the U.S. Many are frequent crossers heading to work, to visit family, or to go shopping. Today, some of them are about to find out that crossing the border now involves another step. A row of brand new kiosks greet them at the front of the line. Border agents help them feed their travel documents into the kiosks. Then, if they're a U.S. citizen, they're ushered across the border, but the non-U.S. citizens are asked to stay back for a moment.
Look in the mirror.
They have to stand very still while a camera inside the kiosk scans their face and eyes.
This is a national security issue as far as looking for individuals who are violating the law.
Customs and Border Protection Assistant Port Director Joseph Meisenhelter explains this is all part of a pilot program evaluating biometrics at the border. He says the agency wants to know if tracking uniquely identifying facial features can help better screen people crossing the border. For the next 6 months, Otay Mesa will be their testing grounds. It's currently the only land crossing where pedestrians will have their faces routinely scanned. If the test is deemed successful, face scanning could expand to other border stops.
This will address certain issues as far as, is that the same person on the document, potential visa overstays, so we'll know with certainty, did that person really leave the United States?
When I asked border crossers how they felt about the new level of screening, most were fine with it. Abel Gongora said he just hopes it cuts down on wait times.
If that's going to improve that, you know what I mean?
Gongora is an American citizen who lives in Tijuana for its cheap rent, but he works in the U.S. as a music instructor. The border can make his commute excruciatingly long.
I really need to get over there. I need to get over there, you know?
Even Mexican citizens said they were more concerned about wait times than anything else.
It's very easy. Now it's more quick.
Cesar Quesada said getting his face scanned was no big deal.
I think it maybe 2-3 seconds.
But civil liberties advocates wonder if border crossers are too willing to trade their personal information for shorter waits. Mitra Ebedelahi is a border litigation attorney with the ACLU's chapter in San Diego. She's worried that this focus on physical features could contribute to racial profiling. She tells border crossers they should be more concerned about the future of face scanning at the border.
I would say, your interest in getting through the border as quickly as possible is a valid one. But if you pay for that convenience by giving up a photo of yourself, and that photo then gets into a database, not just at the border, but potentially used elsewhere, and then is used to connect you to a crime that you didn't commit, because you sort of look like a guy who the victim of that crime has identified as being the perpetrator, how would you feel about the government having that information on file for you indefinitely?
Customs and Border Protection says these new biometrics compare favorably with the accuracy of fingerprint scanning, and it says the images collected during this test will not be shared with other agencies. As for whether or not the new screening improves wait times, border crossers may need to be patient to hear the results. David Wagner, KPBS News.
1 week from today, NFL team owners will kick off a meeting that could decide if the Chargers move to Los Angeles or stay in San Diego. 3 NFL committees are meeting this week. They'll be hearing detailed pitches on the 2 rival LA stadium projects, one shared by the Chargers and Oakland Raiders in Carson, and one for the St. Louis Rams in Inglewood. The NFL's Los Angeles committee could make a recommendation on which project should go forward. All 3 teams officially filed for relocation Monday. Chargers owner Dean Spanos said fans were not to blame for his decision. Mayor Kevin Faulconer shot back on Twitter. He said his proposal for a new stadium in Mission Valley was viable and fair, and that the more San Diego has done, the less engaged the Chargers have become. Following up on an NCAA investigation of the men's basketball program in San Diego State, officials say allegations made against the program's recruitment strategies were not substantiated. CBS Sports reported last September the investigation looked into improper benefits to recruits. In a statement, Coach Steve Fisher says such allegations are common in college sports. He also says it's uncommon for them to come out in public, and he appreciates the NCAA's efforts to look into the matter. One disabled vet will be able to live on his own after receiving a little help from a lot of volunteers in Fallbrook. KPBS's Steve Walsh has this report.
Just over 4 years ago, Marine Sergeant Nick Kimmel lost his legs and most of his left arm to a roadside bomb near Kajaki Dam in Afghanistan. It changed his life forever, and so did having a home of his own.
When you have to rely on someone else all the time, it gets cumbersome. And I almost feel like I'm burdening them a little bit. So now that I have a home that I can be by myself and now I don't have to rely on anyone else, it just allows my life to get back to more normality.
A group of foundations and volunteers led by the Gary Sinise Foundation built him a home in Fallbrook, adapted to work with his abilities.
You can pull down the inside of the cabinets also so he can reach them. Everything is very at his level.
The house is run by a computer server housed in the front room closet. The lights and blinds are run on an iPad so Kimmel doesn't have to get out of bed to close the drapes. This is the 40th home dedicated by the Gary Sinise Foundation. The actor met Kimmel after Kimmel threw out the opening pitch at the 2012 World Series. The idea is to work with severely disabled vets to design a home that they can live in the rest of their lives. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
It turns out a valve may have stopped the fumes from a leaky gas well in Los Angeles that has displaced thousands of residents. A lawyer for the residents says the valve might not have stemmed the leak, though. Southern California Gas Company confirmed its well did not have the valve. A company representative told the Los Angeles Times the law doesn't require such a valve. Residents are suing the company over the leak. SoCal Gas is a subsidiary of San Diego-based Sempra Energy. San Diego County Supervisor Ron Roberts is the new chairman of the Board of Supervisors. He was appointed by his peers and succeeds Supervisor Bill Horn. Supervisor Dave Roberts was first in line to fill the post, but he declined a nomination, citing turmoil in his office. The county settled 3 claims from former Roberts staffers for $310,000 last year, and he is expected to face a tough re-election campaign later this year. A new survey says California outpaced the nation in rent hikes for apartments last year. The survey comes from apartmentlist.com. It says statewide rent for a 1-bedroom unit increased by 7% in the past year, and it went up to 5% for a 2-bedroom. Here in San Diego, the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment was just over $1,600 a month. The most expensive rental market in the state is San Francisco, with an average rent of $4,600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. A new initiative tackling poverty aims to get California's homeless population off the streets. The project is called No Place Like Home. It redirects the funding streams for a 2012 proposition into the construction and rehabilitation of buildings for permanent supportive housing. Officials expect it will cost nearly $2 billion.
The proposal is multi-pronged, attacking homelessness with immediate and longer-term resources while, and let me underscore and italicize the following, creatively leveraging existing local, state, and federal dollars to boost the efforts on the ground.
California has the largest homeless population in the country with 114,000 individuals. We first told you about the country's largest fish farm off of San Diego's coast. The aquaculture project would have a footprint of 1.3 square miles, slightly smaller than Balboa Park. Earlier this year, KPBS reporter Claire Treckerser explained the environmentalist concerns about the project.
On a cool morning a few weeks ago, I boarded a small boat with Matt O'Malley. He's a lawyer with the environmental group San Diego Coastkeeper. We set out from Shelter Island. After 45 minutes riding through some very choppy waters, we rounded Point Loma and stopped at a spot 4 miles off Ocean Beach.
You come out to a place like this, you see how quiet it is, how pristine, how beautiful it is.
While 4 miles sounds like a lot, you could clearly see houses on shore.
I mean, you know that some of these people are going to be out here looking at this.
This is where Rose Canyon Fisheries would go. It's an aquaculture project proposed by a private investor firm and the Hub SeaWorld Research Institute that would produce 11 million pounds of yellowtail and sea bass a year. O'Malley equates it to industrial farming.
An animal feed lot, like a giant sort of, constrained animal cow farm or pig farm, and with no environmental regulations, no property right.
Because it would go in federal waters, Rose Canyon Fisheries wouldn't buy or lease its space. It would have to get permits, but the project is the first of its kind, so there isn't an established federal agency to approve the project.
If you're going to do it, and say San Diego is the proving ground for this, it's a private venture in public property, and we're gonna be the proving ground, we damn well better do it right.
O'Malley has several environmental concerns. The 11 million pounds of fish will create a lot of, fish poop. He says that waste could hurt the water below the farm and the ocean floor and could lead to algae blooms. Fish could also escape the cages and then breed with wild populations, hurting their genetic diversity. Diseases in the farm could also spread to wild populations. And he says marine mammals like sea lions will be attracted to all of those cage fish. They might get caught in the farm's cages or on its anchor lines. He says the farm could also change whale migrations and wild fish behavior.
We're talking about putting a floating factory farm right off the coast in San Diego.
I mean, if people were to sit down to their breakfast and say, I'm not going to eat anything farmed, then it's going to be a pretty light breakfast.
Don Kent heads the Hub SeaWorld Research Institute, which is organizing the project. He doesn't dispute its industrial farm label, but says it won't hurt the environment. He says they're using thick lines and plastic nets that won't entangle marine mammals. He's done modeling to show the farm is in deep enough water to dilute the fish poop. The cages are designed so the fish won't escape, and even if they did, they won't have diseases to spread. Kent also says it will take 8 years to scale the farm up to its full size, and he'll be monitoring its environmental impacts along the way, just like you would with any farming project.
On a chicken farm, you're growing a live organism. You have to feed it. You have to keep it healthy. You have to, you can't let the conditions around become detrimental to its health.
But O'Malley with Coastkeeper points out the project's permits are for its full size. So once it's approved, it could begin churning out more fish before the impacts are fully known.
This is our backyard, and this is a project that is massive and has a lot of potential impact. And we think as a community, if we're going to be embarking on a project like this, we want to make damn sure that environment is protected in the process.
He says Coastkeeper will do whatever it can to ensure the project is vetted, including suing if necessary. That would still leave the problem of America's seafood imbalance. Right now, the U.S. imports 91% of its fish, and supply is dwindling. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
The Buena Vista Audubon Society closes escrow this week on nearly 4 acres of wetlands next to the Buena Vista Lagoon Ecological Reserve between Carlsbad and Oceanside. More than 200 species of birds have been spotted at the lagoon, which is part of the Pacific Flyway for migrating birds. The Audubon Society raised $1.5 million to purchase the land. The site's restoration will be part of plans to restore the whole 220-acre reserve, which is managed by the California Department of Fish and Game.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, I report from New Hampshire on the toll of heroin in the Granite State. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
Almost every week, a musician plays an intimate concert at a desk in NPR studios in Washington, D.C. They're called Tiny Desk Concerts. KPBS culture reporter Angela Carone says San Diego musicians now have a chance to get in on the action.
NPR's very popular Tiny Desk concert series is holding a nationwide contest. I'll let Bob Boylan explain.
I'm Bob Boylan, and we at NPR Music are looking for the next undiscovered artist to play behind my tiny desk. If that's you, wherever you are, submit a video, and you could end up right here.
Bob's Desk has hosted concerts by everyone from Adele to Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. San Diego musicians or bands who don't have a recording contract can film themselves performing an original song in front of any desk. Starting next Tuesday, artists can submit their videos. Last year's winner is a blues singer from Oakland named Fantastic Negrito.
Well, the games that people, they play, they slave through the year for a holiday. Stuck in a room for too long, waiting to hear your favorite song. Wait, panic, freak out.
Since beating out 7,000 others to win the contest, Fantastic Negrito has played several major music festivals. You can find out more information on the contest at kpbs.org. Angela Carone, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, a new report card on children's well-being in California gives the state poor marks in a variety of categories. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.